I want to now go back to Mr. Rikamba. Rulani, talk to us. I know that this is a very interesting journey. And I say this for you because we had Vodacom here.
Yes.
We had Vodacom here, and you have a story to tell us about Vodacom. But I know there's been experience of which is something we discussed previous time of you started as a subcontractor and the amazing things you are doing now with Vodacom. Tell us a little bit about what you are doing and which way it is going.
Okay. Maybe going back to how we actually got into Vodacom. We tried following the normal procedure of submitting database forms, health and safety files. Took almost around 6 months for us to actually penetrate. At the time, back in 2013, CEO of Vodacom, 2013, 2012, CEO of Vodacom was Peter Ace at the time. Then I took initiative to send him an email directly and present my case that we're interested in becoming one of the contractors since we were already supporting their network via other subcontractors. And to my surprise, he responded. Was contacted by a gentleman called Kobas Meyer from supply chain. And I think at the time, that was when Vodacom was embarking on their triple BE journey of becoming compliant. I can't remember what their BE status was at the time. And right at the same time was when I just resigned from Nestle. Then we started working with Vodacom, but we never actually got a formal contract as such. These agreements that they made us sign, the 7-2 agreements or procurement agreements, they usually use a term called non-committal agreements. We started working, maybe when we started the first year, our turnover was sitting at about 1.6 million. It jumped, it doubled up until where we averaged plus minus 12 to 14 million annually. So the challenges that we faced as I keep on looking to my right because I'm going through my presentation. The main challenges that we faced in this industry is, I'll just read through some of them. Most previously disadvantaged SMEs are merely sitting on procurement agreements. That's one of the biggest challenges that we face, as not just Level X, but other contractors that sit on the same platform as us. So from a support perspective, maybe let me just highlight, Vodacom has your technical side, where we support your data and voice network. Like now, at this very moment, if you connected via 4G, 5G for Rain network, we are the ones that support that network from Midrand all the way to Verneuil, the entire south region of Gauteng, with other contractors combined. So the other challenge we've faced is we felt like there's lack of transformation from these companies, because sometimes you find that these roundtables take place without proper intel in terms of the challenges we actually face. Like for instance, when infrastructure rollouts are proposed, the first people to get preference will be the OEMs. These are companies these are original equipment manufacturers. So I'll just mention the names, like companies like Nokia, Huawei, Ericsson, ZTE. So the challenge that we face is we can never go ahead on with some of these guys, because when they respond to some of these bids, they already own the equipment. So they will obviously get first preferences. But from a competition perspective, it becomes a bit unfair on emerging small enterprises to penetrate the market, because what then happens is Vodacom has been pushing to outsource most of their technical implementation work. So the challenge that you face when you're working with some, I just won't mention names, some of the OEMs, you'd find that if you are making 100K per site, you end up making something like 22 grand. So almost 70 to 80% of your markup has been cut. And when you think about it, there's minimal work that they're doing. It's merely configuration that they do. So maybe part of our challenges might be coming from maybe lack of skills, because it's previously disadvantaged. You cannot afford to hire a top tier engineer like maybe your Huawei or Nokia. So you end up empowering locals. Maybe most of our guys, you find that they have a grade 12, some grade 10, but we empower them by training them from like, for instance, the basic entry that you need. You'll have to train someone on fall arrest. Fall arrest, someone who has an AP, they get trained on climbing a tower, maybe a basic license. And also there's opportunities that were presented for guys that have come from FET colleges, guys with your wireman's license and for trade test. So there are lots of opportunities, but the industry is still not transformed in a sense that I think there's some sort of a gap between these mobile network operators and the FET colleges, because you get guys that go to tertiary, maybe to your, I don't want to mention your TOTs in case people, there are people from TUT here, but you find that they graduate, yes, with their diplomas or with their degrees, but you find like technically they're not up to standard. Because I've studied at TUT, where you find that you being taught some curriculum from 1990, 1994. And when you look at our space, it's a space that changes at a rapid pace. Like for instance, now we're sitting on 5G. There's still a lot of people that don't know what 5G is. Even people that I work with from the same industry, you find that we actually go and do the actual installation, but people are not quite clued up as to what they're installing, because there's some sort of a red tape that has been put that people don't see. You find that the only job that we do is get into buckets, drive, run around the whole day. And when you look at the margins, as opposed to when you move to a higher tier, they don't make sense. And also taking into consideration the size of the industry, like if you look at the 2018, 2019 financial year, the mobile network operator space in terms of implementation services, it was, I think they spent plus minus 32 billion rands, of which the, MTN spent 13 billion, Vodacom spent 9 billion. And these figures that I'm talking about figures that went into the transmission and RF departments, like procuring of some of the telecoms equipment, like your antennas, your base station equipment, and also some of the services going into the implement. Some of the budget went into guys like us that do the actual implementation. But when you go look at the actual figure, they rounded it up to maybe about 5% of that. It's not even 5% when you look at it. I mean, when I look at all of us combined, I'm talking about those that are triple B level 1, maybe making turnover of maybe between 10 EMEs and QSEs between 10 and maybe 20 million. I don't think it even makes $1 billion. I'm talking about all of us combined in the entire continent. So when you look at most of the money that's generated by the previously disadvantaged people, it gets pumped out of South Africa. And no one is really, there's no watchdog that actually looks at that. How much money actually stays in South Africa? How much money actually stays in community? For instance, I'll give you I'll give you an example. Most of these mobile network operators, their sites that generate their most income, they sit in townships, in villages. People like here, when you look at, yes, Midrand might generate a significant amount of money, but the sites that are called platinum sites, they're never sitting on the suburban areas. But when we then look at the return on investment, when you look at their, what's the right English word? When you look at how much money is plowed back into the community, it doesn't make sense. For instance, you look at when some of these guys are issued their telecoms license, there's a certain threshold that they're supposed to meet. They resort to just paying the fines because there's no serious consequences that are taken. So we put under a microscope where you find that we constantly are being sabotaged. And so I just think that transformation is not going to happen, in a sense that I've been involved in a lot of these fights where we're trying to transform the industry. I mean, I'm a member of the Black Business Council in the built environment. I'm also a member of SAIC, South African Electrotechnical Export Council. So there's been fights that have been taking place for years, but when you go look within these corporate structures and how Black people are placed, they never really have decision-making powers in terms of how much budget should actually be allocated to these previously disadvantaged companies. And some of the companies never really take transformation seriously because, you know, I'm not speaking about Vodacom in particular, but I'm talking about most corporate companies that they always find a way of rigging their way to level 1 in terms of BE status. And I've also complained about the enterprise supplier development programs. For instance, in particular to be Vodacom, they've got this ESD that they run through Innovation Trust. And the ESD programs actually covers some of the challenges that we face as contractors, like your health and safety challenges. But I complained last time to Shamil, the CEO. I sent him an email that these ESD supply programs are not really making a difference for us because they're merely health and safety programs. We want you guys to give us business because 95% of business is coming from Black people. So they heed our call because, I mean, when you look at us, we're just flying blind in a sense that we don't have fixed contracts that stipulates that, okay, level X will be given work valued at 30 million. So if work is structured like that, then you are able to plan as an organization where you say, okay, I'm going to speak with a bank or speak with a funding institution and say, can you finance me for such, for an X amount of vehicles, X amount of equipment? Because those are some of the challenges we face. For instance, there are tools that we use. There are these tools called site masters that you find that the cost plus minus 120. You've heard about fiber, the splicing machines. I'm talking about quality ones. You're looking at 150 to 200. You've got your OTDRs. So those are some of the things where when they're running ESD programs that we would have appreciated that they really push us like that. And also, just one sec. Yeah, and I've already mentioned that we are forced to work for marginal income where it does not make sense, where it becomes very difficult for us to grow. So in terms of COVID on our side, COVID has presented challenges in a sense that we are forced now to retrench staff. We're going to be retrenching about 7 staff members due to the impact of COVID, how it has impacted us, even though we're an essential service provider. A lot of people within the corporate, like the executives, have been getting sick. Things that normally take 2-3 days to happen, you find that the approvals are taking 3 to 4 weeks. And some, I think, unfortunately, some, as much as we're in a pandemic, some people tend to take this thing of working from home as a holiday, and people become very inefficient because I just think generally as the country and as the world, a lot of people were not prepared. I'm saying in terms of digital transformation, a lot of people still, I'm just saying we still need a lot of development and coaching in terms of our staff, in terms of the general public also, that maybe this going forward, this is going to be the new way of doing business. And also I don't want to just talk about challenges. There's lots of opportunities that I think COVID has presented. If you look at 5G, from 5G perspective, I think for some of the people within MLEE, there's going to be lots of fiber deployment opportunities. As 5G deployment requires, there's going to be lots of towers that will have to be built because it's a short wave. And also when you look at 5G becomes an enabler for new industries. So hence why people need to start looking at different types of skills. Like for instance, maybe some sort of a skills combined with engineering. Like you look at, it's an enabler for smart homes, enabler for autonomous vehicles. The energy and manufacturing sector will be able to implement more efficient processes. And also enabler for telemedicine, cloud robotics for enterprises, and video monitoring and detection. Yeah, and from my personal side, in terms of accomplishments, I've participated in a few trade missions with the government. With the DTI, I've presented and exhibited at the London Tech Week. I've been to Czech Republic just last year with the Department of Trade Industry and the Deputy Minister, where we presented in front of the Deputy Presidents of those countries. I think there's 3 deputies there, and we also presented at Brno in Czech Republic. We have relationships in south of China, your Hong Kong, your Shenzhen, Guangzhou. We know those areas very well.